report from Galaxy Digital reveals that NFT owners may not be getting all the ownership rights they would expect as token holders. Joining us now with more is Alex Thorn. He's the head of research at Galaxy Digital. Hello there, Alex. So your report states in part, and I quote, NFTs today convey exactly zero ownership rights for the underlying artwork to their token holders. So explain what's happening here and what's the gap between what people think they're buying and what they are actually buying.
Yeah. Hey, Christine. Thanks for having me back. We did a review of the top NFT projects, primarily focused again on artwork projects, right? So PFPs, generative art. So not looking at some of the other sort of more not speculative, more futuristic use cases for non-fungible tokens, but really the NFT market as we know it today. And really what we found was that only one project in the top 25 by implied market cap actually even attempts to give ownership, true ownership for the underlying artwork to its token holders. That was the World of Women project, by the way, and definitely kudos to them for the noble effort in actually advancing digital property rights meaningfully. The vast majority of NFT art projects, the PFPs, the art blocks, et cetera, they convey no actual ownership for the underlying content that the NFT tokens point to on the blockchain. And I think this was pretty surprising, given that the majority of people, they typically talk about buying NFTs like buying and owning JPEGs. In reality, they don't actually own anything. When you buy one of these tokens, you're buying a blockchain issued cryptographic asset that contains some metadata. But you're not buying the media that metadata points to. You're actually sort of buying a license from an issuer, somewhat akin to how when you buy a Kindle book from Amazon, you're actually just licensing it for use. They can remove it from your Kindle at any time. They can change the terms of the license at any time. So that isn't ownership, right? By definition, ownership involves owning the copyright. And all of these NFT projects, except for World of Women, retain the copyright for the images that they sell as NFTs.
I do see, though, Seth Green building a whole animated series around a Bored Ape that he owns. And I've seen these Bored Ape cafes popping up with people, putting images of their Bored Ape throughout the cafe and making it a huge theme. So what's going on there? Do they have any rights, or, could Yuga Labs theoretically sue them for using their images?
So it's a great question. The vast majority of these NFTs come with a license from the issuer, right? And a license governs how the token holder can use the content under various circumstances. Those licenses range from extremely permissive. Yuga Labs is definitely on the forefront of the permissive commercial use license, and to highly restrictive, personal use only. You can't even display it in public. And so there's a wide range there. When it comes to, say, Seth Green, the Yuga Labs Bored Apes license does give sort of unlimited commercial rights to the holder of the token. The issue is really, if you're going to build something very durable, either as an entrepreneur who's starting a restaurant or as Seth Green who's creating, a television show, you really need something more durable from the intellectual property holder than simply a one-sided license, right? A terms of service. These aren't even really licenses, they're terms of service, because those terms of service can be changed at any time for any reason or no reason at all by the issuer. So we speculate in this report that it's extremely likely that Seth Green and his production team actually cut a separate deal with Yuga Labs to ensure that Yuga wouldn't change the terms of the license sort of while the show was ongoing. Because to be clear, these licenses, so-called licenses, can be changed or revoked or amended at any time for no reason at all by these issuers without even notifying the holders of the token.
You also say that many issuers, including Yuga Labs, appear to have misled NFT purchasers as to the intellectual property rights for the content they sell. What do you mean by that?
So when you read the terms of service for some of these, they're extremely detailed on some occasions, particularly Yuga Labs' newer licenses. So the Meebits and CryptoPunks licenses that they released last week, their licenses for tokens related to the other side metaverse, like the other deeds terms of service, very clearly spell out that they, Yuga Labs, own the intellectual property for the underlying content, but that they license it to you for your use under various terms, right? That's very clear, and I think that's really appropriate. The Bored Apes Yacht Club license conversely says that when you buy an NFT, you own the Bored Ape, the art, completely, right? That is objectively false. The holder of the token does not own the art completely, right? If they did, Yuga Labs would not need to provide a license to them, right? If you own something outright, if you are the copyright holder, there's no need for you to receive a license from any party. You can do whatever you want with it, distribute it, not distribute it, sell it, monetize it. Right. So that language is very misleading and confusing and frankly contradictory to both other parts of the BAYC license, but also the reality that we know that Yuga Lab retains the copyright ownership over that image. So I think that's a good example of one that just simply needs to be updated to be more accurate, right? They're newer. If you go and look at the CryptoPunks license they released last week, it's extremely detailed and accurate. It literally says, we own the intellectual property, but we license it to you for your use, right? Well, that's accurate, right? I think the worst one we looked at was Moonbirds. This project had a sort of commercial use license, right? Somewhat in the vein of Yuga Labs is you can sort of do what you want with it as long as it's not profane or, otherwise, in contrary, I think you couldn't be competitive with Moonbirds. But it was a commercial use license. Again, if you own the copyright, you don't need a license to use something, right? So implicitly, by there even being a terms of service, it's very obvious that the issuer retains the ownership. However, on their website, on moonbirds.xyz, until August 8th, just a few days after they announced they were changing their license, which again, only the copyright holder can do, it said explicitly, built right from the beginning, you own the IP, right there on their website, right? That wasn't true. It's not true today since they moved to the CCO license, but it was never true, right? By virtue of being able to change the license at all, it's obvious that Proof Collective owned the IP. And actually, you can see it here on the left on the screen. You own the IP.
Wow.
That was not true.
Wow. So does this make the value of these NFTs any less?
Look, personally, I think it does. I think that, when you read about, say, what some have argued Web3 can be, that it is this new internet economy where creators and users own and builders own the content that they interact with, it's very clear you do not own this content, right? Even the one example we found, World of Women, which attempts to through what is called an IP assignment agreement, which is sort of the standard for transferring intellectual property. It attempts to transfer ownership for its NFT artwork to token holders. The issue is it doesn't appear, we don't believe, that there's any reason that the IP assignment will actually travel from secondary purchaser to secondary purchaser. And that's partly due to quirks of copyright law in the United States, but also due to sort of the novel technology of smart contracts and just whether we can actually move this legal agreement around with us. I think in terms of value, if you believe in a future for Web3 where people really own stuff, if you think NFTs are this revolution in digital property rights, which many do, then I think we're a long way off.
So we have seen NFT prices falling. We've seen CryptoPunks flip Bored Apes momentarily. Where do you think this could be a catalyst for that change? Where do you think things are headed?
Well, I think we got a lot of pushback, particularly from Bored Apes holders. I think they have a bit of a misunderstanding about what ownership means. Some have said that it's like owning a house. It's no different than owning a house, that because the government can seize your house, that it's similar to the way Yuga Labs actually retains the underlying ownership for your ape. That is not true at all. You have durable property rights under the U.S. Constitution and American law to real estate property. But so a lot of them know about this. I don't want to say that this is at all really a reason for the shifting in prices. Keep in mind, by definition, these NFTs are highly illiquid too. So a couple moves here and there can really change the floor prices of these assets. But I do think, it's interesting. This issue, a lot of lawyers have talked about this issue for a long time. There are lawyers that work in the NFT space. I've talked to many of them over the weeks, and they're happy that we're writing about it because they've been saying it. And I think there's a future where this could be extremely valuable to figure out getting this ownership right. And just one point to make here too, Christine, is that we're not saying that you must give intellectual property rights to your token holders. That's not the point of this report. I think in most cases with traditional art, the artist doesn't actually hand over the intellectual property to the image that they're selling as a painting, for example, right? So that's not the point. We do think that in a true Web3 world, if we're going to have these immersive metaverses where people own and interact with digital assets and trade them amongst themselves and do whatever else types of commerce they're going to do, that we do need a way to have durable, legally recognizable property rights in those metaverses. And that we don't really have today. So in that sense, we are advocating for movement on this. But in general, I mean, what we're actually calling for is clarity around what you're buying when you buy these, both from the issuers, but I should point out also from the marketplaces. Go to OpenSea and buy an NFT. It is, first of all, they don't display anywhere the terms of the license that you're actually agreeing to anywhere, right? You have to click through, show more, go to the website for the issuer, scroll down to the bottom, hunt through some legalese. I mean, that's got to change. We've got to have more clarity on what people are buying.
Yeah, not only that, but you can't mislead buyers. I mean, if it says, you own this IP and you don't, then, I mean, that's misleading, materially so.
That one was particularly egregious, I think. And they, Moonbirds changed to the Creative Commons license, which is also very interesting. Many projects use this. I wouldn't say we're critical of this license, but we discuss it in detail in the report. And the Creative Commons license moves the intellectual property into the public domain. So rather than say Proof Collective, which issues Moonbirds, owning and retaining the rights to the IP, they actually forsake it and put it in the public domain. But that means no one owns it, right? And there was a case of a Moonbirds holder who was in the midst of striking a deal to license their Moonbird to some brand. And as soon as it was announced that Moonbirds was moving to the CCO, that deal was called off because now the brand knows they can use that image without paying anyone because it's in the public domain. So I think a lot of projects have moved to that CCO because they know the sort of ineffectiveness of transferring IP on chain today, and that's sort of an alternative. And look, it is an open source license. That's positive. But again, it doesn't solve this problem of digital property rights.
Finally, Alex, just want to get your thoughts on the upcoming ETH Merge, how this will impact the NFT market, and just any outlook you have on crypto winter.
Yeah, I think Martin, your prior guest, gave great comments. I mean, I think it is clear that the sort of merge narrative, the bullish merge narrative, got sort of overheated over the last month. It also fell victim to macroeconomic, swings in the markets. And obviously, as he pointed out, I won't reiterate, but there's a lot of macro data and sort of pivot possibilities happening this week. With the Fed and other stuff. I do think the sort of issues that have arisen out of the OFAC sanctioning of Tornado Cash, and they're much broader than simply that application, is a strong counter narrative to the bullishness around the merge. I think a lot of people have been saying for a long time that proof of stake is likely to centralize supply in the hands of regulated entities. We know that already, that Coinbase and Kraken and some of these custodians hold a lot of staked ETH. Right, the actual staked ETH, not the Lido derivative. Obviously, Lido is probably 30% or more of the current ETH staked on the Beacon chain. That doesn't really matter in a proof of work environment, but in proof of stake, right, supply sort of controls consensus in that way. And so it really does matter. And so fears emanating from OFAC's action, combined with the possibility of stablecoin regulation and the sort of fork selection and influence that stablecoin issuers hold over ETH, that is a strong counter narrative, I think, to the merge bullishness. That being said, I think on balance, and certainly in the near and medium term, it's fair to be bullish on the merge for Ethereum. And there's a lot more to come. I mean, just yesterday, I think one of the Geth core team said that they had discovered basically a catastrophic bug in their new client. They've just this morning released a hot fix to fix that. But we're really getting, it's a very tight timetable. So there's a lot of risk associated with this giant activity that people should be aware of.
It's going to be a doozy. All right, we'll end it there. CoinDesk did reach out to Yuga Labs and Proof for comment on Galaxy Digital's report, but we didn't hear back.